and gentlemen, on the one hand is the prime asset of India, the Prime Minister, and on the other, you have Panauti-In-Chief from America. On the one hand, you have Mazboot Bharat, which draws a red line against terror. On the other, you have a failed marshal who seeks a Nobel Prize for an attack on their alliance partner. Diplomacy is a tightrope walk. But when India has to walk this line with President Trump and Field Marshal Munir, because the democratic bosses there probably don't exist, it's a game of brinkmanship. Every step is fraught with unpredictable and erratic risks. But should the price of peace be paid with war? After all, it's evident now that Daddy can't save the day. With Operation Sindoor, India defined its new normal. An act of terror will be seen as an act of war against India. The new doctrine that was put out with clarity and came with conviction, and with conviction came endorsement. All party delegations sent across One India, One Missive to the world. So much so that even countries like Colombia changed their stance. Even amid Trump's proclamations about brokering truce deals with trade between India and Pakistan, Modi told Trump and the world that it was Pakistan who reached out to India to halt its counterattack. But diplomacy, it is said, always comes with both hits and misses. And Donald Trump's mercurial tirades are definitely a big game changer. His repeated peacemaking claims and special luncheons with the likes of Pakistan's Asim Munir for dinner, there is a big miss, at least for optics. It also limits our powers of persuasion when Trump continues to hyphenate India and Pakistan. Watch how he underlines his claims for the world to watch.
ऑपरेशन सिंदूर ने आतंक के खिलाफ लड़ाई में एक नई लकीर खींच दी है। एक नया पैमाना, न्यू नॉर्मल तय कर दिया है। पहला, भारत पर आतंकी हमला हुआ तो मुंह तोड़ जवाब दिया जाएगा। दूसरा, कोई भी न्यूक्लियर ब्लैकमेल भारत नहीं सहेगा। तीसरा, हम आतंक की सरपरस्त सरकार और आतंक के आकाओं को अलग अलग नहीं देखेंगे।
Give me the Nobel Prize for Rwanda, and if you look the Congo, or you could say Serbia, Kosovo, you could say a lot of them. You could say, I mean, the big one is India and Pakistan. I should have gotten it 4 or 5 times. I should get it for the, I would think the Abraham Accords would be a good one too. But they won't give me a Nobel Peace Prize because they only give it to liberals.
Ladies and gentlemen, how foreign policy in the Modi era has really succeeded and what is really going to be looked at. I have 3 very, very senior people who are authors, strategists, and who have looked at this entire policy space very, very closely. First, let me introduce to you, ladies and gentlemen, Ram Madhav, senior leader of the RSS, author, strategic expert, a man who's just 2 days ago released his new book, which is called The New World, 21st Century Order and India. And that exactly is something that everybody is wishing to talk about. Thank you very much for joining me on the show, Ram Madhav. I'm also joined by Pawan Verma, author, diplomat, former member of the Rajya Sabha and chief national spokesperson of the Jan Suraj Party. He has just authored a book on the great Hindu civilization and has been talking about Ramcharitmanas, the greatest ode to Lord Ram, and the book of Krishna, Ghalib, being Indian, becoming Indian, I mean, voracious author, and my friend Sanjay Jha. We come from the same institute, but I think economics has got left behind somewhere. The Gokhale Institute of Politics actually comes now down to politics, and this time world politics. Thank you very much, Sanjay Jha, for joining me on the debate. And let me, before I begin to take Ram Madhav on his book, I want to ask Pawan Verma, 11 years, especially Operation Sindoor and the aftermath. Pawan Verma, how do you look at India in terms of the 21st century foreign policy conundrum? Are we on our balance sheet looking at gainers, or, you know, losing some, gaining some? What does the balance sheet really look to you like?
Many thanks, Navika, and it's a great pleasure to be on this show. I want to congratulate my good friend Ram Madhav on the launch of his new book. I have spoken at the launch of his previous books. He's a scholar and an intellectual, and my best wishes to him. At the same time, I do want to mention for your viewers that I am now in Srinagar. It is peaceful and it is beautiful, and I would encourage all Indians to once again come back to this beautiful valley. Having said that, let me answer your question. I have no doubt whatsoever that in the years to come, if you are speaking of the 21st century, India will be and is already well on the way to being a major power. It is unavoidable. A country of our size, a country of our population, a country whose strengths are democracy, the world's fastest growing economy, a huge market, a nuclear weapon state, India cannot but be on the high table of the international community. Now, in the immediate context of Operation Sindoor, which you asked me, I believe the response of the government and of Prime Minister Modi to the heinous Pahalgam attack was appropriate and sent the right message to Pakistan. As far as what happened post-Operation Sindoor, I believe there have been some avoidable glitches which we need to ponder about in a constructive manner. First of all, the manner in which the ceasefire took place. Our narrative, even before that, when Operation Sindoor was on, I found it a little surprising that except for Israel and France, no other country condemned Pakistani terrorism or upheld our right to self-defense against terrorism. In a way, that was surprising, considering that America itself has been the victim of the worst disaster of Islamic terrorism in 9/11. But only two countries stood with us. Secondly, post the ceasefire, our narrative that the ceasefire was due to bilateral talks between India and Pakistan with no third-party mediation was repeatedly challenged, in fact denied by President Donald Trump, who said that he had arranged the ceasefire. Now there, I believe that a statement by our official spokesperson, a job I have done previously, and by our foreign minister should have been enough to set the record straight, especially when you have a situation where the U.S. Commerce Minister on oath in a U.S. court has said that it was Donald Trump who arranged the ceasefire. And Donald Trump keeps repeating it, but there is no need for India to get into the debate. And yet, I believe that our Prime Minister spoke for 35 minutes to Mr. Donald Trump, trying to persuade him not to say what he's saying. And what was the result of it? The nation was briefed about what the Prime Minister said, but Mr. Trump immediately after that once again said that he had arranged the ceasefire and then invited General Munir for lunch. I believe there are some lessons to learn from this. One thing I want to say in my introductory remark, Navika, that if India is indeed to play the role that we are ordained to play, we must all be always ready to take a stand which we believe is right and in our national interest. That is why I cannot understand, for instance, why we abstained on the UNGA resolution, which 149 countries supported, asking for an immediate unconditional ceasefire in the Israel-Gaza conflict. Why should India abstain? It has not been our policy ever to allow for this unilateral aggression or the occupation of Palestinian lands. We've always believed in the two-state theory. So that is a second issue on which I have my differences. Thirdly, I believe that foreign policy, Navika, is a continuum. It is not episodic. And you have had a situation where we have had groups of members of parliament, all very well qualified, go around to a great number of countries, unitedly pleading our point of view. But to change world perception, one such grand tour is not enough. We have to ask ourselves that with China and Pakistan in tandem on one side, with America playing an ambivalent role on the other, with Russia now no longer as close to us as it was in the past, and with the neighborhood in turmoil, we should have been sending delegations to our neighborhood to convince them about how Pakistan is the epicenter of international terrorism. No country in our neighborhood stood with us, not even Bhutan and Nepal. So for many reasons, I believe that India needs to be able to call a spade in its own national interest, because countries are finally respected for their ability to take a stand on issues where they think that that is the right thing to do, than merely either keep quiet or go along under some pressure which is undefined.
Well, let me get in Ram Madhav. Ram Madhav, hasn't India called a spade a spade? When it responded the way it did militarily to Pakistan after Pahalgam through Operation Sindoor, was that not a decisive action? And of course, it is our defense forces who got us the laurels, but it is a political decision that allows the defense forces to do so. Number one. Number two, has the doctrine of India not changed? And isn't that a more decisive doctrine that we are following today? Have we not taken a position at the SCO where cross-border terrorism was not mentioned, and therefore India refused to sign the communique and got support from other countries? The reason I'm pointing out to all of this is simply to ask you the question, is it all about India floundering, or is there too much of a critical eye on India at a time when the world as a whole is in turmoil?
Thank you, Navika. Yeah, I agree with your last statement that the world is in a very major transitioning phase now. This turmoil, these wars, these conflicts that we see, especially in Eurasia, are actually symptomatic of a major transformation that is taking place. In fact, not the forum to propagate about my book, but my book actually talks about this particular theme, that we are in that interregnum when the old order is fading away and a new order is yet to take shape. During that interregnum, you are seeing symptoms of lots of conflicts and all happening. So we must remember that countries have to recalibrate their strategies, their doctrines, their approach to dealing with all these subjects. That brings me to some of the critical points Ambassador Verma just now raised. See, we are still in that old world thought process where we are driven by a certain amount of romanticism and certain amount of, certain amount of old school of thought. For example, take the case of the issue of abstention from the UNSC resolution. Fact of the matter is, for last several years, we have been abstaining whenever such resolutions are coming before the UN, whether it was Ukraine conflict or even Gaza conflict. It doesn't mean we have abandoned that core principle of two-state solution for Israel-Palestine issue. But Gaza-Israel issue is a different issue. We all want a ceasefire, but I was in Tel Aviv about a month back. On that day, rockets were fired from Gaza into Tel Aviv. I was there on that day. So it's very easy to take a I called it romantic position, not to direct it to any person in the panel, but generally saying we are known for a very romantic approach, very idealistic approach. I have seen a long article written by Sonia Gandhi ji. We have abandoned our principles, abandoned our old, commitments. Foreign policy, I agree, it's a continuum, but only at one level. At another level, there are always nuances added to it. There are always changes affected to it. Foreign policy is dynamic also, depending on the situation. And especially when the whole world is transitioning today, India has to be more realistic, more guarded. That's precisely what we are doing. And as far as that first part of your question is concerned, we have given a strong, befitting, on-the-ground response to Pakistan. But remember, in this age and era, it is not enough you go out and teach a military lesson to the aggressor or the one who is creating mischief, but also you have to tell the world that what you are doing is in the interest of not only your country, but the whole world. That is precisely what we try to do through our delegations going to different countries. Maybe there can be suggestions, why have they not gone to neighboring countries? Yes, maybe a point. Maybe we should go out to the neighboring countries also. But see, as far as Trump is concerned, I just want to caution you about one thing. Trump is like a day trader. He sees today's interest of his country in every action he takes. We are not the only country which is facing that kind of a very critical situation in dealing with him. Every country in the world, all countries in Europe, everybody is facing that situation. You have to learn to deal with him. You have to, if you want your country's interest is to be protected tomorrow, you have to convince him tomorrow that, working with India is beneficial for you tomorrow. That's precisely how you have to deal with him. But remember, India is a very big country. We will do whatever is needed in our interest and in the general regional and global interest to in dealing with President Trump and anybody else in the world. But India also has to stand on its own feet. That is what precisely we are doing. We told President Trump, our Prime Minister told President Trump in very clear terms that in no uncertain terms that what you are saying is totally false. We never allowed any intermediary in interfering in our bilateral affairs. And in fact, he said that I never spoke to you. As much was conveyed. Still, Trump continues with the rhetoric.
Let me get in Sanjay Jha, also an author in his own right, author of 3 books on different issues that he's written. But Sanjay Jha, are we at a political level looking very, very narrowly at foreign policy? We are looking at hits and misses at a micro level on a daily basis, almost as if scoring political brownie points on a daily basis has become the new requirement of Indian politics. And why do I say so? I say so because of the article written by Sonia Gandhi, as Ram Madhav ji refers to, the point that she makes about how foreign policy used to be and how it has been abandoned, so as to look at things from a different prism. The old order has to change to make way for new. It is, the way of life, number one. Number two, when there is involvement of the opposition, of the political class for dissemination of the national stand, there are problems that the opposition has on that. There is politics on that. There is politics on everything that Trump says on a daily basis. If we are going to be so reactive, are we really going to be constructive in terms of our approach to foreign policy, especially if we have a daily report coming out from the headquarters of the Congress Party, the largest opposition party?
I have 2 or 3 real points to make. First and foremost, I agree with both Pawan and Ram to the extent that, yes, foreign policy is a continuum, and at the same time, it has to be adaptive to a new international environment. Having said that, let's recognize the one truth. The one truth is, why do certain fundamental aspects of foreign policy remain consistent over decades in several governments? Because they probably are more respectful of another country's territorial integrity and the human rights dilemma. Now, if you look at Gaza, I think Ram mentioned that, you're being romantic and ideal. But the truth is, in Gaza, what you're witnessing, and I'm not making a political statement, you've heard that from the International Criminal Court, you have heard that from actually the highest office of the United Nations Security Council, that what's happening there is genocide and ethnic cleansing. And at the end of the day, can we ignore that reality? Now, I do see that there has to be some degree of real politics which comes into play, because everyone talks about strategic self-interest. But there are 60,000 people murdered in Gaza, 20,000 children. So, I would say to Ram Madhav, that's something that the country needs to reflect on. What was the UN General Assembly's resolution? To actually provide humanitarian aid, people are dying of starvation, and secondly, to have a ceasefire. Is the Modi government believing there should be no ceasefire? That the military intervention should continue? I mean, that to me is a very huge moral statement being made by India. And if we want to lead the global south, Navika, that's a matter of concern. My second point, I think we need to recognize this, and I'll agree with Ram Madhav on that you're dealing with Donald Trump, who's the elephant in the room, like it or not. America is going to be singularly the biggest influence in international politics for a long time to come, simply because it has the military might and it also has the economic power. It's as simple as that. And if you look at Donald Trump, unpredictable, unstable, irrational, call him what you might. The truth is that we have to also be very clear that, are we probably getting too hyphenated with America? I mean, we keep talking about hyphenated with Pakistan. My bigger concern is, are we getting hyphenated with America so much that whether it comes to condemning Iran, and where India really did not agree with the SCO at that point, and by the way, not even condemning the aggression being done in Israel by Israel, and secondly, going extremely soft on the Israel-Gaza issue, it puts us into some degree of a quandary. That, are we following the US line, perhaps strictly adhering to it when we should not? Because India is no longer, Navika, when we were studying in Gokhale Institute. Today, we have a bigger economy. We have greater military power and strength, and therefore we need to kind of basically punch above our weight, actually. And we also need to recognize, I'm going to be honest about it, the age of American exceptionalism is on the decline. Even as we talk, there is a whole summit happening of NATO, and America is disengaging. In fact, the summit is not even going to last 3 days, because the attention deficit of Mr. Donald Trump is abbreviating to 3 hours. So we are living in extraordinary times. And I feel it'll be intelligent on our part to kind of recognize that if Donald Trump can make Europe feel insecure, and this is the big thing that I want Ram Madhav, because he's part of the government, my feedback, if Europe can feel insecure, they are being told, spend 5% of your GDP on defense or else you're on your own, then how can India feel comfortable by having US influence its policies, even if we believe that we are a good strategic asset for them against China? But we have borders with China. Russia is neutral. And with Pakistan, we face a prospect of a two-front war. So To borrow a popular international term, it's a period of dangerous vulnerability for the world at large. But as Indians, and all of us are part of our country, I feel more concerned that is this government probably tying itself in knots with US policies?
Okay, Ram Madhav, you have your questions cut out for you. Number one, you need to give an answer head on to the questions. By aligning with the United States, are we actually giving up on Russia, which has held us in good stead? And now Russia, China, Pakistan are becoming an axis that is working to our detriment. Question number one. And question number two, the one Pavan Verma raised and you didn't respond to, is about the neighborhood, is about the question that he raised about that only two countries came out and stood with us during Pahalgam and Operation Sindoor, only France and only Israel. What happened to our foreign relations over the last 10 years incrementally, where India saw its stature rising? Both these questions are actually questions that are elephants in the room.
See, I already mentioned about the neighborhood earlier. I said that, yes, there can be probably a suggestion about greater engagement with the neighborhood. Navika, let me just correct that those two countries which were named, they explicitly mentioned Pakistan. But otherwise, terrorism was condemned. The act of terror in Pahalgam was condemned by a host of countries, a large number of countries. So our expectation was that they all should hold Pakistan as responsible for that. For various reasons, countries did not do that. But that apart, see, as far as Gaza is concerned, our Prime Minister himself has issued a statement asking for Prime Minister of Israel to, undertake his operations in a more careful manner so that civilians are not subjected to any kind of, sufferings and all. While it is true that in that conflict, many civilians are suffering, people are dying, this is a fact. Nobody denies that. But there is a regime in Gaza which is definitely using civilians as a kind of a human shield. Now, whether we should ask Israel to completely stop operations, obviously, bleeding hearts are not just a part of Sanjay Jha or somebody else. Everybody has that concern that civilians should not be subjected to any kind of suffering in any conflict. That's a core principle of international law also. But here is a terror organization which is continuously using civilians as human shields and continuing with its terror operations. Now, in that scenario, what should a country like Israel do? That question still remains. I'm not saying that, I'm not taking any side in that. In that kind of a scenario, just as we abstained in many resolutions with regard to Ukraine and Russia in that conflict, we abstained from many resolutions, in that also in United Nations. So probably that was the reason why we decided, let us use our good offices to see if we can, help build peace there. Let me tell you, United Nations has passed more than 40 resolutions on Gaza conflict so far. 40 plus. No result. We are all unhappy that in the 41st resolution, India did not support. India walked out. But these resolutions have their own value or no value. But India did not give up on its core principle. The core principle being we do not side in any war because we are against wars. That's the reason why we did not come under any pressure from US. We have seen in Ukraine-Russia matter, I personally know, because of course I'm not a part of the government, yet I sometimes get the opportunity to meet with very important people in various dispensations. I have heard it from very senior people in the American dispensation that they are utterly unhappy with India. Contrary to what you are all saying here, that, we are all seen as siding with America. On the contrary, Americans say you are not actually supporting us. You are not standing by the so-called democratic principle when it comes to Russia-Ukraine war. So there are perceptions and perceptions. So India, what it is doing is what is needed at this juncture to be out of these conflicts and play a role where it is possible to find a solution to the conflicts. And there is a saying that you can't catch hold of the tail of a tiger in the hope that you can hold the tiger back. Once you hold it, you can neither hold the tiger back nor leave the tail. If you leave it, it will swallow you. We have to be careful in these conflicts. That is precisely what we are doing. We are not giving up on any principles, Navika.
Very, very well said. Tail of the tiger is something that we need to keep in mind. But let me also lead to the next question. And the question that we want to ask is that while the world keeps toppling over the brink of a world war once again, India must count on its friends and keep a check on its foes. During the Russia-Ukraine war, we continued to engage with both sides with non-alignment as the cornerstone. It's India first for our strategic and energy security. But things are trickier while handling the dragon that's China. While talks are on to resolve the border issues, India has made it clear at the SCO that we will not compromise on our stand on terror. India's defiance has ensured that China and Pakistan's resolution was blocked. But the question is, between Israel and Iran, between Ukraine and Russia, between the unfolding situation in different parts of the world, between the challenges on terrorism that keep growing for us, how long can we have an ambivalent stand? And in the mix, add Canada. Blow hot, blow cold. We saw what the years that we had with the previous dispensation. Things have bettered a bit. Where is all of this leading us? Pawan Verma, your thought on this before I bring in the others.
Thank you, Navika. I agree again with what Sanjay and Ram has said, because obviously foreign policy is not a matter of polarities. There is a consensual foundation to a nation's foreign policy, and there are points on which we agree. But when Mr. Ram Madhav says that other countries, without naming Pakistan, generically condemn terrorism, I'm sorry, my threshold of satisfaction is a little higher. Pakistan is being hyphenated with India because Pakistan accuses India of terrorism in Balochistan. So what is the meaning of generically condemning terrorism, especially after Pahalgam, where 25, 26, 28 people died or were injured in a brutal massacre? And there too, you are generically speaking of terrorism involving a country where Osama bin Laden was found given refuge, where there are dozens upon dozens of UN proscribed terrorists roaming free, happily nurtured by the government and the state. America itself has terrorists which it has internationally banned, which are being protected and projected by the Pakistani government. And here you say that it was generic condemnation and we should be satisfied. I believe we need to change world perception on that.
Criticism coming in there from Pawan Verma, unambiguous. Please respond.
No, Mr. Pawan Verma himself was in our foreign service. There are any number of occasions when countries did not directly name Pakistan as perpetrator of terror. I'm not justifying, it's a desire for one to have it after retirement, that's fine. That Pakistan should be named to every country. We tried to tell, after 2008 Mumbai attacks, Navika, we produced volumes and volumes of evidence. We placed it before the United Nations Security Council, everywhere. Yet, countries hesitated or they generally withdrew from directly blaming any other country. Countries behave in different ways. We all want them to name Pakistan explicitly. Some did it, some did not do it. But yes, that doesn't mean no country is standing by India. A majority of the countries which our delegations have visited have clearly said we are definitely against any form of terrorism being used by any country as a means. I mean, expectation being that they should name Pakistan. Short of it, people do appreciate that terrorism cannot be supported. It's okay. I mean, one need not be completely satisfied. Even I am not satisfied. I will be happy if 10 countries say that. But whether they say or do not say, that does not change the reality. That's what I'm trying to say. But other than that, I am slightly surprised by Mr. Pavan Verma's observation that BRICS is becoming irrelevant. In my little knowledge, I tell you, BRICS is one of the most relevant multilateral, minilateral groupings today, and it is growing stronger by day. And we are a part of that grouping, by the way. BRICS, India is also there. If you take all the existing minilaterals, whether it is, of course, SCO he mentioned, but whether it is other smaller groupings of GCC or African
Quad,
Union,
G7,
or for that matter, ASEAN. ASEAN is a different kind of setup. But this, out of all these things today, most relevant and most influentially growing group is BRICS. It's not irrelevant. That's why I'm saying we are in a different mold. We have to look at the world from the new prism. It's a totally different prism. Don't be in a hurry. Don't go for this whole logic that today if they condemn, the Pakistan problem is solved. No, it's not going to work that way. We have to be on our guard. We have to work ourselves for it. In the whole Russia-Ukraine conflict, Russia did not go to any country asking them to, criticize Ukraine. It went about doing its work. Ukraine got support from Western powers, but 40 plus countries remained neutral in Russia-Ukraine war. Lead was taken by India. Now, many people blamed us. Are you not standing by democracy? Because democracy is in danger. This is what the American friends told us. We asked them, since when have you become so concerned about democracy? Did you bother about democracy in countries in the Middle East? But when democratically elected countries were toppled in Latin America, was it justified? So, we are in a different world today, entering into a different world. We need to have a totally different approach. And one point I totally agree. India has to focus more on its neighborhood. India has to rise as, first of all, a regional strong leader in the region. I know in the region, as rightly pointed out, today China is a big competitor. India has to turn its attention to its neighborhood and its extended neighborhood, which is ASEAN. When statements come out belittling ASEAN, it pains because it's a very important partner for us. It's a strategic partner for us. India and ASEAN have a strategic partnership. We have to work on that region more. I totally agree with our panelists. That's what we called as, first of all, lookish. Then we today call it as actist.
Well, but then it brings us back to the question that we started from. So in the last 11 years, when we say we've built up India's profile on the global stage, when we look at the world today post-Operation Sindoor, post-Pahalgam, are we looking at an India that has the balance sheet which has more hits or more misses? And I really want to quantify this in some measurable terms, because that's what citizens of India want to know. And I want to know from you, Sanjay Jha, how would you define this process? Is India, has it gained in stature? Yes, it has. You cannot deny that. But have we lost some of that positive energy that we had on the global fora this year over the last quarter?
Well, Navika, the truth is that, frankly, international image or reputation is not in isolation. It's based on an interconnected flow of events and change in different parts of the world. So, just to take forward exactly what you asked me, and I'm glad Ram Madhav actually said it himself, because I was about to ask him that question, that, calling the ASEAN nations as the B team of China was really harakiri at a time when, and I think Pawan rightly mentioned, the neighborhood should be our priority, especially because America says that we are going to believe in a more multipolar structure, which gives India an opportunity to probably be seen as a big moral economic voice. We are the only country in the region as part of the G20. So, Bangladesh, for example, Ram, I will let you know, is one of our biggest foreign policy failures, that we have alienated what was once the most enduring ally in our region. So these are things to be looked at. But Navika, to answer your question, I think the truth of the matter is that India will willy-nilly, because of its mere size, will become the third largest economy. The question is, what next? Because the gap between India and China, and then China in the United States, is so humongous that we have to grow at nearly 10% per annum of real GDP to be in the league in another 30 years, which looks unforeseeable unless China collapses to 0% growth rate. So these are questions we need to ask. And the second point, Navika, that end of day, one of the issues that probably we haven't been able to address here is that, countries deserve to have their own moral authority, to have a voice on the high table. And this is a point that I think Pawan made. One of the reasons why a lot of people are ridiculing America today is because of Donald Trump and the whole, flip-flop on tariffs. I want to make Gaza into a French Riviera. These things have belittled America's image. And I feel if we as a country actually display a very free, respect for fundamental rights, we don't encourage any disinformation, misinformation campaigns, we actually become a society that is united and extremely liberal in its spirit. I can tell you, beyond our economic and military prowess, we will have really the kind of a dream. I would call it, why not have the great Indian dream? Why do you have people from India going to America for the great American dream? Because America, I believe, after the way Trump is harassing Harvard and Columbia and all the other universities. Ram and I were in Columbia a couple of years ago together. And I believe, why not create a great Indian dream where you can attract talent from abroad?
I'll take you up on that offer. First, if you can have a dream relationship between Rahul Gandhi and Shashi Tharoor, I will take you up on that offer, and maybe use your, Ram Madhav is smiling there, maybe use your offices to get a lot of opposition, intervention into foreign policy. But Pawan Verma, and that's not a joke. That's not a joke. It's serious matter. When the country wants to come together, when the country wants to do these things together, should domestic politics come in the way? Number one. And number two, how would you rate India's foreign policy in the last 11 years? Has it been something that has been a cornerstone of Prime Minister Modi's regime so far? Or do you think the gains seem to have eroded over the last quarter?
No. I believe that in 11 years, India itself has grown militarily, economically, and we have shown ourselves, in spite of certain shortcomings, to be an enduring democracy and an economy on the upswing. So, Prime Minister Modi and the government have led the country to perhaps a better and more powerful image across the world. I mean, there is no point in playing politics over matters of a factual transparency. But if you ask me whether we could have done more, if you are asking me whether, for instance, India could have today had a situation where this hyphenation with Pakistan had ended completely, world perception on the India-Pakistan conflict was decidedly against a terrorist state which Pakistan is. If you are asking me whether we have fully tapped the potential of China's relative isolation today in the world as part of the China plus one policy, if you are asking me whether we have done enough on ease of doing business to attract foreign investment, which will strengthen our foreign policy outreach, on all these questions, there is, in my view, a constructive space for debate. And we don't have to either say very good or very bad. Secondly, I believe that to merely oppose the government is wrong, but to ask the right questions in a constructive manner is part of the democratic dialogue. And as far as the joke that you were making, I believe the Congress party had a lot of egg on its face in the matter in which it handled Shashi Tharoor. The BJP did it to embarrass the Congress. The Congress should have held a press conference, invited Shashi Tharoor and said, we are so happy that when the ruling party needs someone to represent India in the best manner possible to project our national interest, they have to fall back on a congressman. It was so simple. But instead of that, personal and small egos prevented the Congress from benefiting from what was a gift from the BJP. So that kind of small-mindedness, when they affect national parties, is of no good at all. But the government also must allow space for asking, in a democratic government, questions to the government. You cannot claim everything that is even constructively interrogated or suggested to be disruptive of national interest and a question that the government refuses to answer. I mean, I have quoted in one of my columns that at the height of the 1962 war, a young unknown MP called Atal Bihari Vajpayee, aged 36, in the smallest party in the Rajya Sabha, unknown, called the Jan Sangh, asked Prime Minister Nehru to hold a special session of Parliament. And Prime Minister Nehru, who was exactly twice his age at the age of 72, with 2/3 majority in Parliament, agreed to a debate, and Vajpayee launched a scathing attack on Nehru, which Nehru listened to and replied. This is what I call a democracy. You cannot stifle debate on foreign policy in the name of national interest. In fact, I believe it would be good for the country to have these debates.
Okay. Ram Madhav, you can't rate the government on foreign policy. I will not give you that honor because I know what's the result going to be. But I want to ask you, going forward, is the government fragile when it comes to criticism? And that is really the essence of what Pavan Verma has stated.
I really don't think the government is against any kind of criticism at all. But criticism that is certainly constructive, that seeks to get certain right answers or probably right information out of the government should always be welcome. In fact, I see our, last 30 minutes of our debate to be a very constructive criticism. Whether it is about the government stand on Gaza or whether we are too much aligned to the USA and all that, this is the kind of questions that one should raise, and government is duty bound to answer those questions. I am sure nobody in the government, especially the foreign minister, is always in the forefront to take those questions, not just from within the country. You have seen him answering such questions on the international fora also all the time. But you can't publicly ask the government to tell how many aircrafts were downed, 2 or 3, how many died, 3 or 4. Whatever information was to be given to the public, that was given by the army and the government. That is the kind of thing that should be avoided in this kind of a situation. But I would like to come back to one very important point that Mr. Sanjay Jha raised. In the current scenario, of course, India is doing very well, and we have now become the 4th largest economy in the world. But between 4th and 3rd is $1.5 trillion gap. 4th and 2nd is something like $14 trillion gap. So India has to now focus very seriously on its economy. Wars, conflicts are not going to do any good to it. It is going to drain its economy. It's going to be a pressure on its polity. It will be a diversion. That's why what the Indian government is doing is the right thing. Stay out of these conflicts. Help where it is possible to restore peace. Otherwise, focus on economy.
On that note, I have only one point to make. India is on its way to greater heights. There is no two ways about it, and we've had some sort of a consensus right here on the debate. Nobody can stop India right now, a country whose time has come. Having said that, it is the focus on the economy that will keep us in good stead in terms of calling the shots across the world. When we talk about the foreign policy, it is not a science, it is an art of the possible. It is really a creative art and work in progress that will always be work in progress. There can never be one point that you can arrive at where you can say the success is ours, because it is a dynamic situation, it is a dynamic world. The needs, the positions of countries are dynamic, and therefore India will have to be extremely nifty in the way it moves its feet in terms of adjusting to what the world requires for them. In the meanwhile, it is eyes on the economy. Until then, the stature of India has grown, will grow, and our population and the enterprise of our people will take us forward. In the meanwhile, can we just have more of this constructive thought process rather than pulling each other down for some election or the other which is round the corner? That really is the sincere hope of the people of India. We leave it at that. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Ram, Madhav, Pavan Verma and Sanjay Jha. Always a pleasure to have you on the show and under the spotlight.